Hi, I'm Steve Shay. I'm the Secretary of the USCS, a member of USCS, AAMS, American First Day Cover Society, and a member of the USS Saginaw chapter of USCS. Today, we're going to talk about St. Patrick's Day naval covers. Before we get too far into this, you may wonder why we find so many St. Patrick's Day naval covers. If you look back to the 1930s when it was common to prepare naval covers, a lot of covers were prepared for the holidays. In my opinion, it seems like Christmas, 4th of July, and St. Patrick's Days are the most common covers that we find from that period. I think people relate to St. Patrick's Day not only to the heritage fact and they have relatives in Ireland or ancestors from Ireland, but also it's a fun holiday. What other holiday do you get to dress up in green, speak about leprechauns, and find lucky shamrocks? I've split the presentation today up into several categories that you can see on the screen, starting with cancels only, and then looking at different types of cliches, and we'll finish with hand-drawn cliches at the end. But before we get into the covers, just a couple of terms and symbols that we'll be seeing on covers. First off, St. Patrick. He was a 5th century missionary. He was a real person. He was one of the patron saints of Ireland. There's a phrase that we'll see in some of the killer bar slogans, Éireann go bragh, which means Ireland forever. We'll see lots of shamrocks. Those were used by St. Patrick to explain the Holy Trinity. We'll see plenty of leprechauns. They're the mischievous elf-like creatures who grant wishes and point out treasures. We're going to see lots of green. Green is the color of Ireland, but it's also a political symbol. And we'll not get into the politics. And then harps, and harps represent the sovereignty of Ireland. And we'll start with a celebration of St. Patrick's Day covers here. This first cachet was produced by Albert Banaski. He did cachets in the 1980s and 1990s. Passed away in 2009. He was a USCS member. Interestingly, he prepared his covers on a photocopier and then hand folded them and hand colored them. So we see a nice leprechaun here, getting ready to celebrate seeing naval covers. As I said, we start with covers that have no cachets. We see here a cover from the cruiser Northampton with a green ink cancel and a slogan, "Wearing of the Green." On the lower stamp, there is a rubber stamped shamrock used as a killer. A little hard to see on the green stamp, but it's there. Two other covers canceled on the March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. The first one, interestingly enough, is a bulletin for the International Mail Society being mailed canceled aboard the cruiser New Orleans in 1934. I knew nothing about the IMS. I looked them up online, found out they were a society that was created in 1931. So just about the same time USCS was founded. Bottom cover is one which I'm not sure if it's a philatelic cover or a real mail cover. Certainly canceled on March 17th, 1931. Canceled aboard the battleship Tennessee. It's a green envelope, even has green ink. There's no corner card, so I don't know if someone sent off for the cancel or if someone aboard ship was sending a card to somebody. It's a kind of a neat cover. And now we'll move into some rubber stamped cliches. This first one was a cachet that was prepared by Lieutenant Louis Glow. He used this cachet at least 2 different years. I have a 1951 version and a 1952 version stationed aboard the USS New Jersey, celebrating St. Patrick's Day. This top cover, unknown cachet maker, just used a simple rubber stamp kit. The mail clerk got into the act with killer bar slogan of St. Patrick's Day. The bottom cover also has a killer bar slogan of St. Patrick's Day. This cachet was produced by J.V. Theriault and P.P. Lee. Nice rubber stamp cachet featuring the cruiser Trenton. Two covers that I don't know who made these. Slogan on the first one is St. Pat's Day, and the cachet on the bottom one reads St. Patrick's Day. Nice simple cachets, but certainly St. Patrick's Day. And now we'll move into some computer generated cachets. We'll kind of go to the other end of the spectrum. This top cover was prepared by the Taze Nicholson chapter of the USCS, 2005. Cachet reads Happy St. Patrick's Day from the USS George Washington. Mike Brock prepared the bottom cover. Mike has been making cachets since about 2007. And he included a couple shamrocks in St. Patrick's Day 2009. Neil Mills, also a USCS member, he started making cachets in 2015. He recently sold me some of his examples, 4 of them. Here is his 2020 cover and 2018 cover, both with St. Patrick's themed cachets. And here are his 2016 and 2019 versions. Also nice St. Patrick's Day themes. Very nice covers. And from there, we'll move into photo cachets. Normally, when we think about photo cachets, we're thinking about Crosby's, and certainly there are Crosby covers we'll see. The top one is not a Crosby cover, though. This is probably a Bessie Oldfield cachet, featuring a shamrock text of St. Patrick's Day. Someone, and I don't know if it was Bessie or someone later on, posted what was a Crosby photo of the ship. So we have a photo cachet as well as the original Bessie Oldfield cachet. Then the bottom cover is a true Crosby cover. In this case, the mail clerk used the slogan Aaron Go Bragh. And we see a nice shamrock in the center of the cachet in St. Patrick's Day, 1936. The top cover is a Crosby cover, 1938. After Crosby's death, many of his cuts from the cachets he made were sold. And it's unclear where Emil Bilka received his cuts. I don't know if he got them from Mrs. Crosby or if he purchased them from Duke Gamaliel, who was someone else who purchased cuts from Mrs. Crosby. The Bilka cachets are normally identifiable by stamps that have the same color as the ink in the cachet. And in this case, we have a green stamp and we have a green cachet, so I believe this is a Bilka cachet. And as you notice, this is an exact copy of the original Crosby cachet from 1938. All he did was change the name of the ship and used a different photo. So 11 years later, we see the Crosby cachet reused. At the bottom, we have another Crosby cover, 1936. Again, the mail clerk got into the act with the slogan in the killer, Aaron Go Bragh. This is a Duke Gamaliel cover. Gamaliel was stationed aboard the USS Minduro, so you see many of his covers are posted on the Minduro, but he's reused the original artwork of the Crosby cover, at least the bottom portion, and then changed it. Did keep the shamrock, but he's changed it and added some wording. So in this case, we see a cover used in cachet used in 1952 that was originally used in 1936. This is probably an A.A. Lopp cachet. He sponsored covers in 1934. Certainly, I believe the shamrock and text is his. Whether he added the photo, which I believe also is a Crosby photo, I'm not sure. Maybe someone else added that at a later date. But you can note we have nice green ink, we have a nice green cancel, and then we have green stamps and even a green writing for the addressee. Here's a couple of covers from the USS Arizona. The top one is a Jimmy Leopard cachet. Jimmy was stationed aboard the ship, 1936 for this cover. The artwork in this cachet features a smoking leprechaun surrounded by shamrocks. And this is a printer's cut that was used by a lot of printers. In fact, we're going to see this very same design show up many times in the covers we're going to see today. Bottom cover, I'm not sure who made this one, but we do see a shamrock and the Harp of Ireland, as well as some shamrocks in the upper left-hand corner and text which reads St. Patrick's Day, 1937. And from photo cachets, we'll move into printed cachets. Here we have two designs by Sarah Litton. Sarah sponsored covers approximately 1933 through 35. You can see here she has a design used in 34, sponsored by the Fighting Bob Evans chapter of USCS. In 35, she used the same artwork, added a border, and changed the text. So reuse of a central design, but two very distinct different cachets. At the bottom, we have a nice green cancel from the USS Grebe, wearing of the green. And at the top, we have a fancy cancel from the Northampton with Aaron Gobra. At the top, we have a David Bushnell chapter cover. This was drawn by R.F. Shields. He did work for the chapter and did several designs, 1938 through 39. A nice shamrock design featuring the Harp of Ireland, as well as the hat and pipe of a leprechaun. And an interesting arrangement of stamps, 4 of which are green. At the bottom, we have a nice plain cachet, nice silhouette of a harp and angel, saying the word St. Patrick, canceled aboard the battleship Oklahoma, 1939. Christensen prepared and printed his own cachets, and he was active for a little longer period than some of these guys, 1937 through 1944. Here we have a Ted Dennis cachet, and this one actually features St. Patrick himself. Cachet reads St. Patrick of Christianized Ireland. And we see the same Grebe cachet we saw on a previous cover, wearing of the green. The bottom, we have a Robert Scheid Jr. cachet. Scheid was a cover sponsor 1934 through 37. He was also USCS president, 1939. This particular cachet, I know he sent to more than one ship because I also have it from the USS Arizona, so he maybe sent it to other ships also. If you look at the Killer Bar slogan, the mail clerk got creative on this one. He has 2 slogans. He has Aaron Gobra, and he also has St. Patrick. He had to use a small type font to fit in the top killer. So it's kind of interesting, different looking killer. Here we have a couple of Daniel Puglis cachets. Daniel sponsored covers 1934 through 1938, and he often used a common printer's cut. And that's what we see in the center here. The angel and the scroll and the harp are a standard printing cut. Made by somebody or a company name. I'm not sure if it's a person or company, but Huxtable. And these are signed with HUX in the lower right-hand corner. You can see what Puglis did here is for 2 different years, 37 and 38, he used the same central design, and he simply rearranged the border to give him 2 distinctly different cachets. At the bottom, we see his 1936 version in the same artwork, but a different border. At the top, we have a Jack McLennan cachet. McLennan lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, so outside of the US. Nice, rather plain cachet, but certainly got the shamrock in the text and an Irish greeting text from the battleship Texas, 1939. This top cover is one I just recently acquired. I don't know who made it. It's not signed. I had not seen it before. It's canceled aboard the hospital ship Relief. In fact, the cachet reads USS Relief, so it must have been done by somebody aboard ship. And mail clerk got into the act. Nice green cancel with good luck as the slogan. And at the bottom, we see a C.W. Rochelle cover cachet. He did some very nice artwork, very detailed in most cases. Even this one, while it's a fairly plain design, he's got a lot of cross hatching, makes it, again, very detailed. Canceled aboard the USS Ranger with a green cancel, 1935. Rochelle sponsored covers 1934 through 1940. He worked with both ANCS chapters, crews, as well as USCS members. And we'll see some more of his artwork later on. Here we have one which features that Huxtable cut. This may be a Daniel Puglis cachet, I'm not sure. In this case, someone has handwritten in the scroll St. Patrick's Day. Canceled aboard the USS Northampton with the wearing of the green slogan. And here we can see the killer on the stamp a little bit better. Definitely a shamrock and a leprechaun's pipe. At the bottom, we have another Jack McLennan cachet. This from the submarine USS Argonaut. Nice photo, printed photo of the submarine, as well as text reminding us there's an Irish greeting on St. Patrick's Day from the boys of the submarine fleet. Another potential Daniel Puglis cachet featuring that same Huxtable artwork. In this case, a couple of rubber stamps have been added. We see shamrocks. And if you look closely at the cancel, it in black ink is marked March 16th, but someone has overstamped it with green ink so that it reads March 17th. And the killer bar slogan reads St. Patrick Day. The bottom cover, I don't know who made this cachet. The corner card on the back says that it was sent by M.B. Owens, which was a cachet maker, but I don't believe this is his cachet. Nice map of Ireland, a little bit of history, and leprechaun superimposed on the map of Ireland. A couple of Frederick Horton cachets, similar but different. These are his 1937 and 1938 versions. You can see he kept the same shamrock each year, but he modified the text and made them year specific. He was an ANCS member as well as a USCS member. And in the 2 different years, you can see he used his 2 different member numbers. He sponsored and serviced covers about 1937 through 1948. At the top, we have a Leo Miller cachet. This one features the cruiser Northampton, but he's also added a shamrock, and this was hand colored. Have a yellow shamrock instead of a green shamrock, but it's certainly reminding us of St. Patrick's Day, and the slogan wearing of the green again from the Northampton. The bottom cover, I do not know who made this one, but you can see that same smoking leprechaun that we saw in the Arizona cover, and we'll see again in several other covers. Leo Miller was a crewman aboard the Northampton. He sponsored covers 35 through 36. At the top, we have an A.J. Harvath cachet. We see the harp of Ireland. We see the smoking leprechaun superimposed on the harp. And then we see a shamrock at the bottom, which someone has hand colored in green, and we have a nice shamrock border. Harvath was a mail clerk aboard the USS Chaumont, and he sponsored covers in 36. The bottom cover is prepared by Leo Shoup, and we see our smoking leprechaun again and some text reminding us of St. Patrick's Day. At the top, we have a Robert Graham cachet. He sponsored covers 1935 through 38. He always had them canceled aboard the USS Pennsylvania, as this one is. The cachet features the same smoking leprechaun. In this case, he has a two-color cachet. Fairly unfortunate use of color for the lighter one. It's, I guess it's a light green, yellow, but it doesn't show up very well. But in that color, you can see a battleship profile, which is surely the USS Pennsylvania. The bottom is an unknown cachet maker to me, but we see our smoking leprechaun again, and St. Patrick's Day 1940. At the top, we have a Glen Platte cachet. This one is text with a small border around it, reminding us of St. Patrick's Day. The text notes that St. Patrick died on March 17th, which is the accepted date. Talks about where he died and where he's buried. And the bottom, we see our smoking leprechaun once again. This is a John Brandt Jr. cachet. Brandt sponsored and service covers 1939 through 1940. And the text tells us that St. Patrick was born about the year 385 and died in the year 461. Going to have a couple of Donald Graff cachets to show you now. Graff sponsored covers 1937 through 51, so we did quite a few cachets. He was, I believe, the president of the American Shore Station Cancellation Society, as well as a USCS member. You can see here his 1948 and 49 cachets. Basically the same artwork, although he's modified the text in each case. Graff normally sent his covers to a number of ships. So for instance, on the 1948 cover, you can find this one from probably a half a dozen different ships. And here is his 1949 version. Again, this was sent to multiple ships, and you can find it from multiple ships also. Nice green envelope that he used that particular year, and a little bit different artwork. Two more Graff, 1947 version. Another one, this one's canceled aboard the destroyer Rich, but you can find this one from several ships. The bottom one, I'm not sure that's necessarily a Graff design. I think it's maybe more of a commercial design, but he used it. And we see a smoking leprechaun, but not quite the same profile as the other cachets. Here we have two similar cachets. The top is a Clyde Welsh cachet. Nice circle St. Patrick's Day with a shamrock in the center. Arthur Christensen used the same design, 1940. And Christensen was both a printer and a cover producer. This one has been hand colored. I'm not sure if he did that or someone else did that one. Welch sponsored covers 1933 through 1938. His primary interest was actually flight covers. You'll see his name in airmail flight covers. Here we have a Hal Dearst cachet. A nice St. Patrick's theme with the shamrock, the harp, the leprechaun hat, and I guess that's a shillelagh, 1936. You can see that he left the K out of the word Patrick's at the bottom of the cachet. Not sure if that was intentional or in error, but it certainly made all the wording fit pretty well. So maybe that was intentional. He sponsored covers 1935 and 1936. And at the bottom, we have a Norman Mary cachet, primarily a nautical theme, but he's added the text St. Patrick's Day greeting, March 17, 1938. Norman Mary sponsored covers 1934 through 1940. And here we have a couple William Linto cachets. Probably most people know the name Linto and about his covers. He sponsored covers for a fairly long period, 1935 through 1947. It's said that he produced probably in excess of 5,000 different cachets. Not only did he do navals, but he did historical covers, patriotic cachets. So he did a lot of different cachets. Some were printed, as are these. Some were hand drawn, and we'll see some of those later in the presentation. He used a nice green envelope for the bottom one with green ink. Two more of his covers, 1940, 1941. Again, nice green envelope for the 1941 version. And here we have a Russell Court cachet. Pretty simple design featuring a profile of the USS John D. Edwards, but text reminding us that this was St. Patrick's Day in 1938. Court sponsored and drew cachets about 1937 through 1938. And at the bottom, we have a Taze Nicholson's cachet, and again, another name that most of us recognize. Taze was a printer, he was a sponsor, he was a servicer. He did a lot of covers over the years. His covers date from 1935 through 1997. Probably the longest serving cover producer we've seen. And it's said that he did a little over 2,000 cachets. At the top is that same A.A. Lopp cachet we saw earlier, although this one does not have the photo added to it. And at the bottom, we see another Taze Nicholson cachet, St. Patrick's Day, 1937. Here is another Frederick Horton cachet. You may remember the same shamrock from his earlier designs. This one was specific to the USS Brooklyn, 1938. And then at the bottom, we have another C.W. Rochelle cachet, pretty much a nautical theme, though he's added the text for St. Patrick's Day in 1936. And the ship got into the act with a nice green cancel. And in the next few slides, we're going to see several Old Ironsides cachets. USS Constitution, better known as Old Ironsides. At the top, we have a cover sponsored by Eddie Eisenhart. I don't think he was a naval cover collector, but I believe he was more of a St. Patrick's guy. At the bottom, we see a John Gill cachet, a very nice shamrock and harp border, 1934. The top 1933 Old Ironsides cover. I don't know who made this cachet. The rubber stamp of the ship is a John Gill cachet, but I'm not sure who the printed shamrock is from. At the bottom, we have actually a rubber stamp, I think, possibly rubber stamp, possibly printed, a little hard to tell. This was produced by the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce when Old Ironsides was in Long Beach, 1933. Two stickers have been added. We see the flag and the harp, and we see the leprechaun hat. You'll see these same stickers on a later cover prepared by Henry Steinmetz. So I sort of feel this may be a Steinmetz edition on this cover here, but I'm not sure. And we see the same Sarah Litton cachet we saw earlier, 1934. The top one, we have a John Gill cancel added. At the bottom, we see it was canceled aboard the USS Pennsylvania with a very nice green, vivid green ink and slogan St. Patrick's Day. And at the top, we see our smiling leprechaun again. This is a Hal Dearst cachet. And we can see some text talking about St. Patrick's Day. In this case, I think the text is correct. It ends with the real date of birth is doubtful, which I think is true. The date of March 17th is attributed to St. Patrick's death, but we aren't really quite sure when he was born. It does note, and this is true also, that St. Patrick wasn't Irish. He was born in Scotland of Roman heritage. And he is credited with the conversion of the Irish race to Christianity. And at the bottom, we have another old iron size cachet, the same shamrock and harp border with a nice ship cachet. And a couple more old iron sides. The top has the same Sarah Lytton cachet, same John Gill rubber stamp cachets. And this one you can see is signed by Harry Moore, who was the mail clerk aboard the ship, and it's sent to his wife, Mrs. Harry Moore. And the bottom, we have another John Gill cachet. And one more old iron sides, mainly text, St. Patrick's Day, 1934. This is a William Hager sponsored cover. He sponsored covers 1933 through 1940. He often worked with Alex Hesse. In fact, you can see this cover is addressed to Alex. And the bottom is an A. Kaufman design, featuring a smiling sailor, and the text reminding us of St. Patrick's Day, 1937. He drew some art mainly for holiday covers in 1937. And here we have a Lieutenant A.D. Hunter cachet. Hunter was stationed at the Puget Sound Navy Yard at the time. Got this one canceled aboard the battleship Oklahoma. At the bottom, we have a Loring Standard cachet. He was an artist and sponsor 1934 through 41. The printing on this one's not too great. It's a little bit washed out, but certainly we can see that it was St. Patrick's Day, 1937. And here we have a couple of PJ Ickeringill designs. PJ was a very early USCS member. His membership number was number 4. So he was one of the founding members. He did cachets 1933, 1934, 1935. This one, 1935 at the top. And you can see the Farragut chapter reused this cachet. The bottom cover, it was canceled in 1965, but the same design was used. And here is another case of the Farragut chapter recycling a design. The original design was 1935 by PJ, and then it used again in 1968. Here at the top, we have a Martin Aden cachet. Aden worked at the Vallejo Naval Shipyard at Mare Island. He was an artist, did designs 1936 through 51. I really like Martin's work. I have a number of covers. He did a lot of commissioning or ship launching cachets for Mare Island ships. This one you can see is pretty detailed, nice humorous sailors, and reminding us that it is March 17th, 1936. The shamrocks up at the top remind us of St. Patrick's Day. And at the bottom, we have a Jack McLennan cachet. This is our guy who lived in Vancouver. The cachet is fairly generic for the USS Texas. At the bottom, you can see there's a box to fill in wording, and in this case, he's used this cachet on St. Patrick's Day, 1937. Couple of shamrock covers. Top, we have a Russell Court cachet, canceled aboard the USS Thrush. And at the bottom, we have a Schlechter cachet. Schlechter sponsored and printed and service covers 1935 through 39. And this one certainly telling us it's St. Patrick's Day with a nice long-stemmed shamrock, 1936. At the top, we have an Al Cohen cachet. He sponsored cachets 1939 through 1942. Rather simple design with a shamrock and a smiling leprechaun, and two what I think look like very angry looking women. I'm not sure why they're angry looking, but that's how they come across to me. And the cachet reminds us that it's March 17th. St. Patrick's Day, 1951 in this case. And at the bottom, we have another C.W. Rochelle cachet. Again, very nice artwork, featuring 4 pirates at the corner and shamrock in the center, reminding us of St. Patrick's Day. The battleship Battleship Mississippi used a very nice green ink. It's very vivid, and used the slogan Aaron's Day for 1936. The USS Oregon chapter prepared some St. Patrick's Day covers. This is their 1988 and 89 versions, featuring the same artwork design. The 88 version has some text added to it. And a 1990 and a 91 version. Again, the 90 version used the same leprechaun, a little bit different text, and then a totally different design for 1991. And now we're going to see some hand-colored cachets. Most of these, I think, are really beautiful designs, and the coloring just really make the cachet pop and look really nice. At the top, we have a PJ Ickeringgill cachet. It's, in fact, one of the same ones we saw earlier, but in this case, it's got nice green hand coloring and yellow coloring, which makes the cachet stand out much more. St. Patrick's Day, 1935. And at the bottom was a ANCS crew, Argonauts crew cachet for the USS Permit. Shamrock design, Lucky Horseshoe, 1937. And a couple of Douglas and Harry Wentz cachets. They were brothers. They sponsored covers 1936, 1938. And again, the hand coloring just makes these cachets pop out a lot more than a regular black and white cachet would. Doug Ebert. Doug is a current USCS member. He's been making covers since about 2002. He's often made St. Patrick's Day covers. This is his 2005, 2007 versions. And he always hand colors his cachets. Very nice. We see the same Bessie Oldfield cachet we saw earlier. Nice green USS Thrush cancel. And to the bottom, we have another C.W. Rochelle design. Very detailed, very attractive. And the hand coloring in this case just makes it even more so. Now we're going to see some handmade cachets. The top one features what I believe is a printed sailboat possibly out of a magazine. The paper's been cut and pasted onto the envelope. I'm not sure the relevance of the sailboat, but it was canceled aboard the Thrush in St. Patrick's Day, 1937. Don't know who made that one. And at the bottom, we have a Roger Wentworth design. Roger's pretty well known for his mermaid cachets. In this case, he used a zapper from the USS Theodore Roosevelt as a cachet and added a couple of Irish stamps. 2014 cover. Richard Hall, he's a current USCS member, and he's prepared some St. Patrick's Day covers. These from 1992 from different ships, and used a little rubber stamp and some stickers to make attractive cachets. The bottom one is another Richard Hall design, again 1992. The top is from an unknown cachet maker, a rubber stamp reading St. Patrick's Day with a date hand filled in, and a glittery shamrock sticker used for the design. I believe this cover is probably from the same person. Again, I don't know who it is, but it's the same rubber stamp. In this case, they filled in 1993 and then used a shamrock sticker again. This one is kind of neat, mailed from somebody to Harry Smuckler. Harry was a longtime naval cover collector from the 20s and still collecting in 1970. It's got a simple adhesive applied to it, noting that Probably the sender was a member of the Irish Philatelic Association. And nice little shamrock. And now we're going to see several Henry Steinmetz covers. And these are covers that once you see a few, you recognize his style, and you can tell right away it's a Steinmetz cover, even if his name isn't there. He often used printed cliches, but he also often used stickers, and as we'll see, some other traits to his covers. These are both printed designs. His name is on both, as a matter of fact. You see the leprechaun with on a motorcycle, but you also see a couple of stickers applied: the Irish flag stamp and harp, and leprechaun's hat at the bottom. These were the same stickers used on the old Ironsides cover. And again, that's why I believe that one has probably had his hand in it, but I can't be sure on that. The top one features another one of Steinmetz's recognizable traits, and this is a silk-covered envelope. The cachet was printed on the silk, canceled on the silk. In this case, he used a mat behind the stamp, another one of his common traits. And he often had triangles in the corners of the envelope, as this one does. So those are all recognizable Steinmetz features. The bottom, he's used that same design we saw earlier from Christensen and Welch, but he's got some printed wording going along with it that was his. He's got a sticker with a shamrock and a leprechaun on it. He did a number of 10s, and these, I believe, are probably all one of a kind. We see our motorcycling leprechaun again with a printed cachet at the left, but we also see a nice, very large sticker in the center, probably featuring the Irish coastline. And then we can see a mat was used for the stamp. In fact, he picked an 11-cent stamp, which was over-franked by quite a bit, but it's a nice green stamp, so we know that's why he used it. And it's got a nice stamp featuring a shillelagh and a leprechaun's hat underneath the cancel. Another printed on silk, but also a very nice large sticker in this center featuring an Irish castle, a couple of other stickers, and a mat underneath the stamp, as well as a mat under the cancel. Again, printed cachet, but also a very nice, attractive sticker in the center featuring, I guess, probably a creek or river in Ireland, and a shamrock sticker reading us on St. Patrick's Day, 1937. Another one printed on silk with a very large Irish lass sticker here in this case. In this case, he's used a very old 3-cent stamp, also on matting. Another one printed cachet, also a great big large sticker in the center. We see the Aaron Gobra text, we see the harp, we see the leprechaun's hat, barely can see a shillelagh, and we see a leprechaun's pipe. And that same sticker that we saw a couple covers back with a leprechaun on a shamrock. And again, he's used green stamps, also on matting in this case. And yet another green stamp, a different stamp, different matting, different sticker, and we see our cycling leprechaun once again. More printing, very nice sticker in the center. Different matting at the top. This time it wasn't a green stamp, and also matting underneath the Saratoga cancel. And again, another one of a kind with the Sarah Litton printed cachet, but a couple of stickers in the corners, a sticker in the center, and a nice Irish castle design underneath the stamp. And now we're going to move into hand-drawn covers. I think hand-drawn covers are really attractive. Not always one of a kind, but many of them are. At the top, we have a cachet prepared by Ted Rodersberg. St. Patrick's Day, 1938. Rodersberg did covers 1937 through 39. He's listed in the Cachet Maker's Catalog as being a shut-in. I had always assumed that that meant an elderly person, probably in a nursing home or something like that. But when I did a little bit of research, I found out that Ted died in 1939 at the age of 37. Don't know what his health issue was, but he died a fairly young man. And I also learned he was an autograph collector and pretty well known as an autograph collector. The bottom is an unknown Cachet artist. I'm not sure who did this simple design, but it's got the nautical anchor, but also have the green shamrock for St. Patrick's Day, 1935. These are a couple of Gary Rogach designs. Gary did a lot of covers, late 1980s to late 1990s, all hand-drawn and hand-colored, as are these. Not produced in large quantities, just a couple of covers in each case. I don't think he really gets the respect I feel he should get for all the hard work he had to put into making these covers. Takes some talent and some time to hand draw and hand color covers like these. Two more of his designs, 1998, 1980, 1989. And here are a number of Roger Wentworth designs. Roger did Cachets from about 1978 to 2020 when he passed away. Many of his designs, as I mentioned before, are mermaids, but he also did some St. Patrick's Day covers. You're going to see several of them here. These cases, in both covers, he's added Irish stamps to the lower right-hand corner. Give it a little bit of an Irish flair. These are both canceled in 2016. A couple of others, 2013. Guess that's probably a ferry on the top cover and a map of Ireland on the bottom cover. I like the top cover. It features a pint of Guinness as well as an Irish stamp featuring Guinness on the stamp. 2013. Bottom cover has a map of Ireland again in 2015 with an Irish stamp. Top cover, we see the harp and the shamrock, 2013. And the bottom, we have another leprechaun, 2016. Nice Irish stamp in the right-hand corner. And the top, we see the map again, 2014. And at the bottom, we see what is an add-on for Roger. Cover is dated 1953. The cover is an add-on Cachet, and Roger always marked his add-ons on the back of the cover so that we know it's an add-on. And a couple more of Roger's. See an angel on the harp, and we see St. Patrick himself in 2014. And a couple more leprechauns, 2014, 2013. I think I mentioned earlier that Linto also did hand-drawn Cachets. This top one is one of his hand-drawn ones, featuring a shamrock for St. Patrick's Day, 1935. Most of his Cachets he prepared 50 to 100 copies of, so he would have drawn this shamrock design numerous times. The bottom, I think, is a very attractive design. This is produced by Alice Beatty. It's also thermographed as well as hand-drawn. The silver ink and the silver outlining of the shamrock and the text are all thermographed. In this case, I think it's a unique slogan. I haven't seen this in any others, but canceled aboard the cruiser Honolulu with the slogan reading "All the way to Galway." And at the top, we have a Lottie Eschliman hand-drawn Cachet and a somewhat different slogan killer reading "Honoring St. Patrick," canceled aboard the USS Arctic. And at the bottom, we have another Ted Roderberg Cachet. Very nice, certainly a St. Patrick's Day theme in 1938. Paul Parrish did a number of hand-drawn covers. Paul lived in Topeka, Kansas. Did some of his covers along with Irene Griffith, who we'll see here in a few minutes, also from Topeka. This one featuring a flag with the harp on it. The bottom, a little bit more of a nautical theme. I suspect this is probably a George Brand hand-drawn cachet, featuring a battleship turret, and then with the text reading St. Patrick's Day for 1935. The top, we see an Irish lass. I believe this is a Lavina May Mingo's cachet. And then at the bottom, we see another Ted Rotterberg cachet, 1938, featuring the ship, a ship, but also featuring the scroll at the top and a shamrock at the bottom. So we know it's a St. Patrick's Day cover. And if you look at the fish, she's wearing a leprechaun's hat. Here is an Irene Griffith cachet. She did work about 1935 through 1940. Fairly simple designs, always hand colored, hand drawn. Usually, certainly more than one of a kind, usually did multiple copies. I think probably about 25 to 30 copies of each one. The bottom is another Paul Parrish cachet, at least I believe it is. The pig had me confused for quite a while. I didn't know why a pig would be on a St. Patrick's Day cover. And then I learned that even when St. Patrick's Day occurred during Lent, on St. Patrick's Day, you were allowed to eat pork. So I believe we see the porky pig here, denoting that fact. And we see a nice green cancel from the USS Thrush on that date. A couple more Lento designs, hand drawn again. He would have drawn probably 50 to 75 of these. Top one, nice harp. If you look at the corners of this one, you can see some discoloration starting to happen. And I think what that is the acid from the ink is starting to eat into the paper. If you look at it closely, you can see the paper is starting to disintegrate in those areas. The bottom one, a nice simple shamrock design with a green background. We see the shamrock killer in the pipe, same rubber stamp we saw on some other covers earlier, was used as a killer on the stamp in this case, and the slogan honoring St. Patrick. One more Lento cover, canceled aboard the USS Arizona, 1938. And here we have a copy of the Sarah Litton design. This one's been hand drawn and hand colored, 1934. And we have two more Irene Griffith cachets. Again, fairly simple, but they're nice designs. Certainly these are St. Patrick's Day themes. We can see that same shamrock was used on as a killer on the top stamp. Two very similar looking covers, different years, 1937, 1938. These are W.C. Stamper cachets, both hand drawn. The top, 1975, I don't know who prepared this rubber stamp text, but it's a hand-drawn green shamrock on this one. The bottom one is a very recent acquisition for me. This is a William Shaw cachet. He did pen and ink designs, usually one of a kind, and this one features a bass drummer, denoting the fact that it's the 17th or St. Patrick's Day, 1934. The top cover, it's fairly common. It is hand-drawn. I don't know who made this one. It's not signed. We see the map of Ireland and shamrock and a leprechaun on it. The bottom, we have one more Old Ironsides cover. This one hand-drawn by Robert Merck, 1934. And an Irene Griffith cachet, as well as a Paul Parrish cachet, both hand-drawn here. And a more modern, but hand-drawn, rubber stamp text with the shamrocks Hat and pipe are all hand drawn, 1995, unknown cachet maker. And we'll finish with a Roger Wentworth, rather happy leprechaun, 2013 design of Rogers. If with that, we'll fiddle our way out of the presentation. You've just seen and hopefully enjoyed 172 different St. Patrick's Day covers. And I'll end the presentation with an Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall upon your fields. And until we meet again. Thank you all for attending. I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed this.